This time I'm actually making sure my mic works before I get started. It would be pretty lame to do a crochet chat stream and then find out my mic was not working. It would be very, just kind of sad, I think. Anyway, I got a few pieces of things I need to work on. Largely just things I need to, a few more body parts I need to do so they can be sewn on. So I'm going to sit down and do that because I'm putting this between I have this little chancy here between my feet because lately I've been noticing I cross my ankles a lot when I just sit here. I feel like that probably is not good for my circulation. I don't know, but it probably isn't. I feel like it probably isn't. Reorganizing my stuff here so I can be properly propped up. But got my little Fuecoco in here right now. Normally I have my Eevee and my Chansey, but I was feeling like I need a little bit of a change. So, just reorganizing a few things here. We got a nice, kind of sad looking Stitch. He's just going to hang out with me down here. Got a couple of other guys to go on my lap to hopefully prop my arms up. I got my nice little Gothic Dragon Familiar. Put my Slowpoke in my lap so that I prop my arms up a little bit better and I hopefully do not hunch as much, which I think definitely gives me some pain. Put that guy there for a moment. Got my Umbreon here, got my Espeon on my other side, got my little Fuecoco. Alrighty. Anyway, so I don't know if there's going to be a lot to talk about in this particular stream. Again, I didn't really come on with like a topic I wanted to talk about. It's more just like I want to force myself to sit down and finish these last, like, I have to do some like tail pieces for one of the little like Pokemon I was working on. I think it's going to be like a Mesprit. And so I need to do that. I've not been doing that. I've been working with a lot of white lately. When you work with the same color for a while, it starts getting a little boring, so. Originally was like going to do a video game stream, but I'm like, realistically, I probably should finish this Esper I'm working on, so I'm going to do that first. Did I take my phone out of my pocket? Pretty sure I did. Yeah, there it is. Alright, so let's see what we got here. Kind of like the tag says, I'm not necessarily gonna, I'll probably start chatting soon enough because inevitably I'll feel unsettled by it being too quiet in here, but right now I'm just going to see what hook I need. If my pattern comes up. Nope, that's not the right one. It's the one next to it. There we go. I was using, I thought so, 5.5. I remember there was a 5.5 or 6, and last thing you want to do is end up with a pattern that has improperly sized parts. I'm sure my pink one's my 5.5. Yep, that's my 5.5. Blue one, and I'll need some scissors. Anyway. So I'm just gonna kind of hang out and chill, and if anyone wishes to talk or, chat, feel free to put comments out. I'll chat and see what you have to say. I get chatty once you get me going, but right now I'm kind of just getting my vibes going, just trying to, I haven't crochet chat in a little bit. I'm trying to get back into streaming more regularly. It's just, spring, it's always a tiring time, especially if you're if you're a teacher, because you're getting closer to the end of the school year, the kids know you're getting closer to the end of the school year. Everything just feels a lot more tiring. I'm also right now in a particularly, emotional time of the month, so I'm just kind of feeling fatigued. So I'm just gonna kind of hang out and chill. I wonder if I should put my other guy there? I wonder, would my Stitch fit there better? I put you right there. I put... Hey, what's up? Yellow Ducky 07. Nice. I've been thinking about rubber ducks a lot lately. I was going to make one. I was thinking I have this pattern for a rubber duck. It's supposed to be based off of you've seen Hazbin Hotel, Lucifer, who has a thing for rubber ducks. It's supposed to be based off of him, so it's like a duck with a little top hat. I was thinking of doing it just because I like to know how to make a top hat, but haven't tried it yet. Got a lot of really nice yellows, though. So welcome to the chat. I'm going to be crocheting little tail pieces for this mess spread I'm working on. 4 and around, alright. And I might talk about nerdy things. I might talk about my dog, or my job. Something along those lines. I don't tend to like silence. I'm going to move my mic just a little bit so I'm going to move my pop filter just a little bit. So I don't punch it by accident as I'm doing this. Yeah, thanks. I mean, I'm trying to be on brand. We're channel's Cozy Gamers after all, so I'm trying to stay on brand here. But yeah, I do like an abundance of soft things around me when I'm just hanging out and chilling. It's a sensory thing. Plus, also, who doesn't like just having soft things? So yeah, I got all my different plush guys here. I used to have I had before Chansey and an Eevee Squishmallow in here. Now I have my Fuecoco. He's underneath my arm. He's kind of hard to see. But and then we got. You actually can't see like the majority of. There's actually like a whole other wall of them over here. There's a whole other wall of them over here. The camera just can't catch all that stuff. But yeah, we got my giant crochet dragon in the back there. Got my little cozy friends. These are from the Pokemon Center, the Comfy Friends line. It's my favorite line of plushies that Pokemon Center has. Because they're incredibly soft. They're actually a pretty good size for their price. I hate when you have to buy like a plushie for $50 and then it's like that big. So these are a good size for their price. Single around, alright. So typically I'm wearing a sweatshirt. 1, 2, 3, 4. To also be very cozy, but I forgot to grab it before I came in here. So just gonna have to deal with having snuggy pants, that's all. Yeah, I got a shawl around here somewhere I can reach over and grab if it gets down to that. It's also, though, we're getting into spring, which, you know, where we are at, I'm in North Carolina, so that means that it can be any season it wants, no matter what time of the year it is. So spring could be 80 to 90 degrees, or spring can be 20 degrees and chance of snow, or spring can be thunderstorms for a week and constant rain. It's quite fun. Means you never really know what to dress up for. Okay, 1 and an increase. My little plushies around me, I don't think any of them are around me that are crocheted. I have one, I can try and reach it. I have one I crocheted that's a little bit farther. It's outside the camera's view. I'll grab it in a second. The one right behind my head. You see that blue and green thing? It's kind of hard to see because he's pretty big, but this guy's a dragon in the back. He is crocheted. Most of the things that are on me are ones that I've bought. But I do crochet a lot of plushies myself. My sister and I run a business called Dust Drops on Etsy. She makes custom-made paintings on glass and earrings, and I make crocheted a bit of everything. So most often when I'm on stream, I'm usually crocheting like different versions of Freddy's from like the FNAF series, but lately I've been dabbling with some Pokemon like patterns, doing some snugglers. Try what, you know, like the plushies make that are flat. What was the thing I was making recently? It was a wolf or something? But I made a big Freddy lately. And that was a big golden Freddy. Okay, single around. That one was, I'm making a lot of large thing lately. So, like, there's, it's very rare I'll finish something on stream. Usually I'll finish, like, a body part and be like, hey, now imagine if this was on a creature. Like, right now, I'm making tail fins, technically. But, I gotta make 6 of them, which is why I've been putting it off, because due to my various, mental things, which range from, like, just being forgetful to being hyper-focused, doing repetitive tasks can sometimes be the best thing in the world for my brain, and other times doing repetitive tasks sounds like the worst thing in the world, and all I can think about is new tasks I want to do. So, I've been putting this off for a long time, even though I have all the other body parts ready. You ever start randomly hearing dogs? I don't know how good my microphone is, but you ever start randomly hearing dogs? That's because I have 4 dogs downstairs. I'm in my library, but I have 4 dogs downstairs, who tend to bark if anyone comes even vaguely near the house, so you randomly hear barking. It's not your imagination, that is real. Oh yeah, well, I can't really show it because it's a little too far out of my reach. But I do have, like, if you got an Instagram, my Instagram's Desk Crochet, that's where I usually post all the pictures of my plushies I've done in the past, but if you're curious for things I've made in the past, they're all on my Instagram, too. Okay, I'm missing a stitch here, I think. Okay, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How do I have 7? Oh yeah, very, what a wild guess. Not sure how you ever came to that conclusion. Yes, I've been a fan of Stitch for many years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we got 6 there. Maybe I just did too many stitches. 1, 2. Okay, we got 6. I might have just done too many stitches. Yeah, Stitch has been my favorite since, like, I was very young. You can't see it, but I'm wearing Stitch pants right now. I got my Stitch shirt. It's on my little cup. Also my coasters underneath my cup. It's on my little crochet bag. You could say he's a special interest to me, which is funny. I didn't know what that was until, like, you know, very recently, maybe in the last few years or so. But like, there's like so many extra Stitch things you cannot see in the frame right now. Like, there's a lot of Squishmallows behind my head. There's a lot of Squishmallows in our back corner. But yeah, I really like Stitch. It was always my favorite growing up. And also, like, when I was growing up and the first movie came out, let me make sure I actually do 6 this time. Yeah, they're making a live action Lilo and Stitch movie. I actually did react to the trailer and give my analysis of it. It was a bit ago, so it's probably not on Twitch anymore, but if you I got a YouTube channel as well under Cozy Gamers, and that's where all my videos go. So you want to check that out. I actually did a full reaction. I think it was like an hour or so long in, like, analysis of the trailer as, like, you know, the Stitch fan. Like TMI. But I have had a lot of thoughts about it. Like, there's some optimistic things I could see from it. There's a lot of things I thought were okay about it. And there was obviously a few things that I was very concerned about it. But how do you feel about live action for the... I prefer to keep the... Yes. Live action on its own, I think, can be well utilized. I think the problem we're in right now is that people are not... movie developers are not utilizing it to the best of its ability. It could be used a lot better. It's kind of like, you know, that time when everyone was making, like, you know, young adult novels in the movies. It's like, the first one, you know, I believe was The Hunger Games, and that was a good series of movies. But then, like, they just started, like, searching for the money without, like, putting consideration to, like, oh, maybe we should actually, like, put some effort into this. Okay, how do I have too many stitches again? Where am I getting one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Am I just going into the wrong hole? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I got 6. I must just not be going to the right hole. Anyway. See. Xandarian 5. That makes me think of Xander from Fire Emblem. If anyone's ever played Fire Emblem Fates. I like Xander when it's spelled with an X more than when it's spelled with a Z. I think I named my first playthrough of Pokemon White, I think I named my Snivy Xander with an X. Which is funny, because up until that point I spelled it with a Z, but for some reason on that particular Black playthrough I spelled it with an X. Not sure why. I think I just did it, but then after that, like, ever seeing Xander spelled with a Z was weird to me. Anyway, so live action I think can do very well. But, like, any art form, it has to have, like, direction behind it, like a purpose behind it. And lately, all, like, the live action remakes for, see that? 1, 2. Okay, I feel like I'm missing something here. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Where am I getting an extra stitch in here? Alright, we're just gonna play with this a little bit because I'm not sure where I'm getting an extra stitch here. That's the other reason I don't like working with white and black, because it's harder to see. But live action can be used very well, but lately, like all the Disney remakes, they're not using live action because they think that it's going to actually enhance the media or the story they want to tell. It's more like, no, we want to tell you these other stories again, and, buy in on all your nostalgia for them. So I'm like, when Lilo and Stitch was announced as a movie that was going to get a live action remake, I was already skeptical and, like, had no belief in my mind that it could ever be good. Largely because, like, Lilo and Stitch comes to my mind as, like, a truly artistic movie. Kind of like Mulan, where it's, like, the art form that made that movie is so, like, stylized that it really is best suited to animation. Like, again, Stitch super fan here, but, like, I remember I had the art book for Lilo and Stitch as a kid, and I read through it, like, 3 times. And the biggest thing was the watercolor backgrounds they drew for the animation. Oh, cool. Good for you. Glad you got to see your cousin. All my cousins live, like, 7 states away, so I don't see them very often. Okay, 8. Do I have 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, I think we're back. Yeah, it's not too bad, though, to be fair, honestly. There's only probably, like, 6 or so that I actually enjoy seeing, so those ones are willing to come down and visit us. The ones who don't stay there. So it's the ones who I do like to see do tend to come see us. Gig like a music gig, like like a drummer, or like a guitar person or a singer or something like that. I have a friend who does gigs and he's a drummer. My brother's also a drummer. But yeah, back to Lilo and Stitch. Lilo and Stitch has a lot of watercolor backgrounds, like water brush painted, and then they have the animation on top of it, which gives it such a unique look. And it's also like you're like walking into a postcard almost. And also, Lilo and Stitch was pretty unique for the time because of like Chris Sanders, how he drew. Is that like all the humans in that, and honestly all the creatures in that movie have a lot of weight to them. Like they're thick. They have. You look at Nani. She's not like a little like Snow White Disney princess. She has thicker thighs. She has thicker arms. She has more of a waist, like, but not like a teeny waist, like they're proportioned, Lilo's kind of, she's a 5-year-old, but she's kind of short and chubby, like, it felt like the proportions were more natural, in a way, like, they were still very stylized, but they felt, like, not pretty and perfect, and I feel that made, like, especially with the story that they were trying to tell, made it feel more real. Some of it just feels like they're milking the nostalgia. Yeah. I think people are just starting to realize that after the Snow White movie came out, but yes, they are definitely doing that. Which is okay. I mean, I am someone who, like, I wouldn't say necessarily has, like, loves always when they do cameos, but I love it when you have, like, callbacks to things. Because that makes me feel like I've put investment into this thing, and I'm now getting this extra payout because I put investment into this thing. So I do like things that have callbacks to things. Like, for instance, the first live-action one they did, which was Maleficent. I really like that movie. I still really like that movie. Even people go back and, like, don't like it now. but people really liked it at the time, and I really liked the movie because one, Sleeping Beauty is kind of a boring story on its own. That one's literally just there to show off what they can do with the animation. There is not much story there. It's like, you know, I personally think all the Disney princesses have a lot of personality when you actually look at it. They're not all just flat standard stereotypes. The exception being Sleepy Beauty. She really is just there to be saved. There's not a whole lot for her to do, and man, there's like these choir songs that are very slow. Like as a kid, I hated watching that movie because I got so bored. But like, so when they remade it into like Maleficent, I'm like, well, one, it's interesting because it's almost kind of like one of those twisted fairy tales. You kind of see where you're seeing a new, like an old story told in a different way. And who doesn't, in like, who's at least not intrigued by the idea of, I feel like I've done this wrong. This doesn't look right. Who's at least not intrigued by the idea of, like, a story being told from the villain's perspective? So I really liked Maleficent. That was the first one they did. I don't know, they didn't try and do more in that vein, where they, like, retell the story from either a different character's perspective or in a different way. But then for some reason after that one, because Sleeping Beauty, like, would have tanked if it wasn't, like, redone in a way, because it's kind of a boring film, the initial one. It was in need of a remake. But then, like, for some reason, after all those, like, after that one, all of them were just, like, play-for-play remakes. Yeah, I thought Angelina was very good in that, too. It's, like, some people, like, don't like that movie, and I'm like, why not? I thought it was a fun time. I think it did what no other Disney remake did, and it told you a new story. Like, that's why it's the only one I really like, because it's the only one that told me a new story. I like that they added some new characters, they let you see things from a slightly different perspective, and, like, it was... Also, it's one of those, like, some people complain because they're like, well, this is Maleficent. She's, like, the evil person. Like, let's be honest with ourselves. Maleficent is cool because she's, like, you know, like, this, like, evil queen who gets to be less, like, malicious without really a reason, essentially just for petty reasons, and she turns into a dragon. Yes, I definitely think those are cool. But, again, very generic, bland hero in Snow White, so, yeah, her villain is great in terms of being just villainous and evil, and, like, definitely is, like, the pinnacle and, like, you know, evil in terms of just evil for evil's sake in terms of the early generation Disney villains, but let's be honest, she's not doing much in the film, because a lot of it is just Sleeping Beauty waiting around to fall under the spell, and, you know, the fairies being dumb, but, she doesn't get a ton of screen time in the original movie, and, you know, she doesn't do admittedly a whole lot, so I really like the fact that they kind of built upon that story, then showed you what we already knew about the Sleeping Beauty film. And I like the fact that, like, people go to, like, the whole thing with Anna and Elsa about, like, you know, the first time being, like, true love's kiss wasn't, like, you know, like, or it was act of true love in Frozen. But they assumed romantic love. They didn't think about it could be a love between sisters. I like that, but personally the one that hit more for me was a Maleficent, whereas, like, you know, true love's kiss. I like the idea that, like, the prince did it. They assumed it was him. But since no one was actually there at the time, it actually was the person behind her, which was, you know, Maleficent, who loved her like a daughter. Again, still a true love's kiss, but not in a romantic way. In a familial way, which I think is also an equally powerful form of love, you know? Like, I like the way that they tied the dragon in, where, like, she wasn't the dragon, her, like, a familiar essentially was the dragon. I like the fact that they built him into an actual character instead of just, let's see, Death King Live 2. Hello, welcome to the chat. We're sitting and chatting right now while I crochet, or at least try to crochet. I, for some reason, cannot keep ending up with one too many stitches here. I'm discussing live-action Disney movies. So, they had... I'm doing okay right now. I've been a little sore, and I actually had to take a break from crocheting, because I've kind of been crocheting non-stop the last 2 days, and I'm starting to get a lot of pain in my wrists. So I've actually tried to do some other hobbies, play a little video games, write a few, like, I also, I write short stories and stuff, So I was doing a little bit of that for the last few days, but now I think I need to get back into crocheting a little bit. So, yeah. So, like, with Maleficent, I like the fact that, like, they made her, by the way, do you know her Raven actually does have a name in the original movie? It's Diablo. Just, means devil. But I like the fact that they changed that in the remake and made him into an actual character, kind of because she honestly needed one. She needed someone to talk to. She needed some sort of confidant. And so I like the fact that they added that in, because honestly before, Maleficent in the original Sleeping Beauty did not need anyone to talk to because she was just there to be evil. But I'm like, if you're going to make this a fleshed out character, you have to have somebody she puts her guard down around. So I like the fact that they made, so like, her Raven is a Raven, but also, since she's has magic, she can shift him into other forms. So like, he's a human a lot of the time, so she has someone to talk to, like actually talk to, because she needs, even if she doesn't want to admit it to herself for the most of the movie, she does want someone to talk to. And then but also like how they tied in, like, they hint up to it before there, where like, she obviously turns him into a bird, but sometimes she like turns him into a wolf at one point. Has turned him into other things. So I like the fact that was, like, at the end of the movie, she turns him into a dragon, and you're like, there's the dragon, because we know, like, the key moments from Sleeping Beauty, for instance, that Maleficent turns into a dragon at the end. I like the fact that they tied in the dragon that way. She wasn't the dragon, there was a dragon there, so kind of like the idea, like, if someone was telling back their story, they might have gotten certain details wrong because they weren't actually there. Kind of like how stories do just evolve over time. It's I'm someone, like, who studied a lot of literature. I have a writing degree. I'm working on my writing master's actually right now. And, like, so I have a lot of interest in literature, and it's fascinating how stories, like, evolve over time, especially now that we're in the age of, like, the internet and, like, how online internet stories work. Okay, I think I did it right this time. So this time I'm going to actually count my stitches, make sure I actually end up with six. Ugh. So give me a second while I make sure I actually count my stitches correctly this time. So 1... Somehow I ended up with too many last time. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. For certain got 6 this time. But I like the fact that, yeah. I was, to Death King's original thing, sorry you've had a boring day, but sometimes a boring day, at the very least, is not a horrible day. Sometimes I'd rather have a boring day than a day that was full of stress. Or anxiety. I have anxiety. I've got a couple of mental things I do with and take care of on the daily. So I like when I can do that. Hopefully it'll be a little bit better. You hang out and chill and vibe with us. Let's see. So that's why you know a great deal. I was attention to detail. Oh, thanks. Lovely thing about this. Anyone who's new to the channel, I've said before, I am someone with ADHD and with autism. I think I have, like, level 1 of that. So I do have, hyperfocus, hyperfixations, special interest, that sort of thing. So I tend to, like, analyze things a lot and notice a lot of details. So yeah, I honestly can take, like, I also, like, can make, like, a metaphor out of anything, just because that's the way my brain works. So I notice a lot of details like that. That's probably why I like Maleficent so much, is because I could see all those little details from the original story and how they tied them in. And, like, still kept them in there, but, like, made them in a way that was, like, they could have been misremembered or mistold in the actual story. So therefore the details are there, like, the whole thing with Maleficent crashing the party, the whole thing with the 3 fairies taking care of Aurora, the whole thing with the True Love's kiss and thinking it was a prince that woke her up. The whole idea is, they fought a dragon afterwards. Those things did happen, just not necessarily in the way people knew it. I also just love to see a dragon. I love a dragon. I got a dragon in my lap right now, actually. But, I've made quite a few dragons, 3 I think so far with that I've crocheted myself, but I love dragons, so I really like the fact that they like essentially by like hinting at the whole time that like she was like shifting her what was it, Diaval I believe his name was, shifting her like familiar into like different shapes. I like that they like kind of foreshadow that so that like later on when you see him and he turns into a dragon, it's actually really cool. And I thought that was really nice. Also, I like the fact that whenever they shapeshifted him into something else, he would always have feather-like features to essentially show that like whatever he turned into always still looked very bird-like, which even like applied when he was a human form. They got somebody who had some very like sharp features that would look like a raven. I like attention to detail. Have you ever thought about writing a movie? I don't think I've ever thought about writing a movie. I've thought about writing a novel a few times. I've had several ideas for novels. In fact, I was for one of my grad classes, I was taking a study on fiction, and so part of it was plotting out a novel. I'm going to take a screenwriting course eventually, so I suppose I will probably write at very least a screenplay at some point for assignment, if nothing else. But I've never actually thought of writing a movie. Believe it or not, I actually originally wanted to do animation, because my first interest actually was art. I've always been very artistic. I love like designing and creating things, and especially drawing dragons. And then later on I do a lot of drawing Pokemon. If anyone's still on DeviantArt, that's where I like used to spend a lot of my time. I draw a lot of Pokemon. I put all my artwork on there. I put some of my stories up on there. I'm a little bit more hesitant about sharing my stories because I suppose I have more insecurity about that. But I put a lot of my artwork up on DeviantArt under Dustlugia. That's usually my username on pretty much everything I'm on. Dusk something. It's because I like Lugia. But so I originally wanted to like work with movies and like animation. So like originally 2D animation, like Lilo and Stitch and stuff like that. But then later on, when like DreamWorks was getting bigger, I saw Had to Say How to Train Your Dragon, and that movie just like spoke to me, because that was like, again, I love dragons. I've always loved dragons. Like besides Stitch, that's the one thing I've always loved. Well, thanks for stopping by for a little bit. I'll probably still be here in a few minutes. I was like always been into dragons, much like I've always been into Stitch. So like when How to Train Your Dragon was like, and the thing is like I like dragons, but usually dragons are used in a way that like they're a monster. They're always supposed to usually be evil. You're usually supposed to kill them, or they're mindless beasts. But like I always liked the versions of dragons that were intelligent and were like strategic and good or bad, but like usually the winged ones. But like I also have very strong fondness for Eastern dragons. Like anyone ever remembers the book Dragonology? I was so into that as a kid. I'm sure I still have it in here somewhere. But so when I saw How to Train Your Dragon, first of all, great movie, great trilogy. And speaking of live action movies, we could talk about How to Train Your Dragon live action too. But like How to Train Your Dragon was such a huge thing for me, because like it was the first time I like was like I could make something like that. So then I was thinking also maybe animated movies, like 3D animation. I went back and forth a lot because I always knew I was artistic. I love stories, and I like creatures. So I was always kind of like going back and forth on what I wanted to do. But then I also did have a How to Train Your Dragon is such a classic. The whole trilogy is great. Definitely think the first movie is the best, hands down. Some people think the second movie is better. I still think the first movie is the best. But the whole trilogy is great. My sister just doesn't. I think is the one who said like she doesn't care for the third movie just because you have to say goodbye to the series. I'm like, that's fair. Third movie is well done, but it's also just like it is sad because you're saying goodbye to the series. That is very strong. And that movie isn't even as old, so it's kind of weird they're doing a live action of that one. 2 in an increase. So like they have I went through a lot of different things. So like for a while I was thinking maybe animation, but the thing I always struggled with is I always had like this creativity within me. I remember one of the questions we are asked in our fiction course was the idea of like, do you think writing good stories is something that can be taught, or is something that people just have talent for? You just, if you know, you know. And I take a stance to somewhere in the middle, where I think that like the passion for stories, to tell stories, is something that burns inside you. Like I think any artist can relate to that, is that there's something that you need to get out, there's something that you need to create, you need to see existing in the world. Like there's a story you have to tell, a picture you have to draw, like you want to bring something into the world. Like I think that's a born talent thing, like they want to make something. But like the skill to make a good story is something that's taught. So like I've always had like this want to make something, I just can never quite decide on what. So like for a while what I had was like I went between like 2D animation, 3D animation, then like I have a very special interest in video games, especially video games with like, you know, strong storylines, fantasy. Once I discovered that like RPGs and JRPGs exist, that became like my favorite style of game. As the name implies, I'm a cozy gamer, so like not I do sometimes play cozy games, the genre, but you know, when I originally came up with the name, that wasn't really a genre. But like I love playing all sorts of video games. They've always been fascinating to me because they're like the one form of media that you can actually interact with. Movies, books, are all passive forms of media. The story is made and completed, and the audience is not part of that experience. They watch a finished product. A video game is the only kind of media which requires player input, which the player can affect and like essentially is brought into the world quite literally. Which I think is a fascinating thing when you think about storytelling, because storytelling, especially like everyone knows about like the term, for instance, the fourth wall, about how like when you are immersed in a story, you're on the outside of it. You're like watching like another world, but like video games, you actually kind of go in effect and can do things, like, which is why I was always fascinated with them. So then for like by the time I got to college, I wanted to make video games. Because that was the cool thing to me. Okay, 2 rounds. Got it. So, I wanted to make video games. I originally started as a game design major. A game design simulation was the technical term. And I was going to get my bachelor's in that. But I did it, and I was okay at it. But, like, it was one of those things where, like, I can usually do whatever as I put my mind to it. But I didn't feel like it was naturally where I was at. I felt like I struggled at times. Like, I was great with the artistic part, I was great with the writing part. But, like, getting into, like, the coding, the modeling, all the tech stuff, took more of a math brain, honestly. So I struggled with that. And so it was, like, it came down to the point where, like, and it was also a pretty competitive program, because being a game designer is an incredibly competitive job. There's so many different facets of it you could, like, specialize in, and it's a very competitive job field. So I ultimately did not go with game design. I switched my major to being a graphic design person instead, because I could manage 2D art better than I could 3D art that moves and changes and that you have to do playtesting with. In coding. Coding was the biggest thing that scared me. Everyone feared the coding class. What was those genre games called again where you affect the dialogue and the storylines with lots of endings? It depends. That's more of a gameplay mechanic than it is a genre. You're probably thinking of narrative-based games is what what you're usually called, where like it's all about the story and you're more kind of walking through it like a playable cutscene or a playable movie. But what you're talking about is branching dialogue, but that's a mechanic, not necessarily a genre. That can appear in any sort of game. Most often, it does appear in RPGs and narrative-based games, as well as visual novels. But, like, it can appear in anything. Like, you could find that in something like Ace Attorney, or you could find that in something like Mass Effect. You can find, Baldur's Gate 3 has a lot of those things. Detroit Become Human, one of my personal favorite games. We did play that one in the channel. Really great game. Highly recommend it. It still holds up, despite being, like, 10 or 12 years old now. Like, the motion capture in that game was just expertly done. That, like, you know, even motion capture is always a little bit of a shaky thing. But like it was a French company of some sort. The company who did the motion capture in Detroit Become Human, like, they knew how to do it and how to make it look good and natural. Like, because some motion capture just looks strange. You know, like, I, for instance, love the Dark Pictures Anthology games. Motion capture always looks a little janky to me. They have obviously gotten better as they've gotten more entries, but it always looks a little janky to me in that game. They always don't look quite right. But like Detroit Become Human, being the fact that it was a story about like humans and androids, they actually leaned into that so that they were able to essentially hide any uncanniness of the characters and the fact of like, oh, well, some of these literally aren't actually humans. They are machines. So we actually sometimes let the characters, like the android characters, be stiff like that, and it actually adds more immersion to the game because then like you're not thinking like this doesn't move like a human because of bad mocap. You're like, no, it's an android. That's why it doesn't move like a human. Like, just, you haven't played it. I love it. Great game. Great storylines too. But those would be what you would call like a narrative-driven game. But then again, with the exception of a few, a lot of genres, at least in the video game medium, are kind of like fan-made terms. So you could call it anything. I mean, like, what would you define a game like Pokemon? Like, I've not played Life is Strange. Well, let me put it this way. I played a chapter of Life is Strange with a friend once. But I've watched it through several times and watched many analysis videos of it. Again, my brain's just constantly like buzzing, so I'm always trying to take things in. So I've watched many playthroughs of it. It and the sequel one with the girl who senses emotions. I watched that one too. Never played it myself. It's more just because of I just didn't like connect to the characters in that story. So like if you do not connect with the characters, it's kind of hard to go through with choice-based games. And I just, in Life was Strange, I did not like Chloe at all. So I found it very hard to keep going. And then I watched it, I'm like, oh yeah, there's actually a lot of cool stuff going on here. But I'm like, if you have like a bad feeling about a character early on, then it's kind of hard to keep pushing yourself forward. So, Detroit Become Human is a great game. I like it has multiple storylines, has some very interesting ideas, and honestly, just play it for like Connor's storyline, because like his storyline in his like there's 3 protagonists: Kara, Connor, and Marcus. Which the whole idea is that you're dealing with a futuristic Detroit, where androids have like essentially a jump forward in technology has resulted in the like creation of androids that are like, you know, practically humans, like practically synthetic humans at this point. But, you know, they don't have consciousness. They are still just machines, but they're like they're used to kind of help humans do like a lot of jobs that might be too dangerous, or, you know, that they might need more forces for, or sometimes it's just maybe someone needs a live-in assistant. So you have Kara, who's like essentially like a surrogate mother android, like a maid or something like that. And you have Marcus, who's essentially like a caretaker android. He takes care of this like old artist. And then you have Connor, who's a prototype android detective. They're done by Quantic Dream, who like before that had done Quiet Rain, I believe was the one. It's either Quiet Rain or Silent Rain, one or the other. It was a detective noir sort of story, and then before that I think was Beyond Two Souls. But they essentially did a lot of narrative choice-based games. They did. Okay, I need to do tune to decrease. They did. So they have the story essentially is about androids essentially starting to go deviant or rogue, and the ideas of like, you know, those of like these androids gaining consciousness. And, you know, like, going deviant and therefore, you know, trying to become, like, people, essentially. So there's the whole question of, like, what defines human. That's what the title is about, Detroit Become Human. And Kara's story is, like, she becomes, like, I'm also not spoiling anything. These are things that they pretty much tell you in the first 5 minutes. Kara ends up going deviant and rescuing a little girl who she, like, you know, a little human girl who she ends up bonding with. You know, the whole idea of, like, you know, is motherhood like something that like humans only have? Could an android have it? Marcus ends up being like he was also you don't realize until like, you know, initially, but like he's a prototype too, so he ends up going deviant, and essentially becomes like a freedom like movement person who essentially becomes like the face of the android revolution, and then Connor is one who worked for the people who designed the androids, and he's essentially an android detective. But he's also, his job is to hunt deviants and figure out why the deviants are happening in the first place. So like his are very like cop adventure action based gameplay. They all have a great deal of like emotional depth. Most part, all the characters are pretty good. There are some that I think are done better than others. I obviously think Connor's storyline is the best because I think he has the best human characters. Namely Marcus's storyline. Some of his side characters are a little like, the game changes a lot depending on your choices, and I like the fact that not like unlike like the Telltale games, like the Walking Dead. I only played season 1, but like the Walking Dead series, like they always do like they will remember this or this changed or this stuff like that. They always like indicate that something has happened. I liked in Detroit Become Human where they have no indication of when you changed fate somehow, and there's like 85 different endings. Like, it's a very comprehensive game. Like, you know, there's like 100% completion where you just get all the trophies, and then some people do like the 100% where you fill out the entire flow chart of the entire like game of every potential occurrence, every potential ending. I remember there's like this one instance like I saved someone on a rooftop or something like during one of Connor's first missions, and you don't hear about that until like halfway through the game, where if you save that guy, he'll come up and thank you for it. And he's like, it's weird saying this to an android because I thought you guys were all just kind of machines, but like, thanks for saving my life. I got to go home to my wife and kids because of you. And like, you know, at that point in Connor's storyline, like he's kind of, the point is about all of them gaining consciousness. So at that point, you know, he's kind of like starting to wonder about like he could either be like hunting down the deviants, or is like, does he want to join them? Like, that's what his storyline I think is the most interesting, because Kara and Marcus have their own storylines that are very fascinating too, but they also just start as deviants, so they're kind of about like becoming more human, while like Connor's storyline is interesting because you can choose to, do you want to join the revolution or do you want to stay a machine and fight with the humans. Very fascinating story all around. But his storyline is the best just because he has the best companion character with Hank, like, who's done by, what's his name? Clancy Brown, I believe is his name. Great voice actor. He's, just best dynamic duo ever. Connor and Hank's storyline is just so good to me because, like, that one, like, I'm talking about right now, and I honestly want to play through the game again. Their storyline is so good just because I feel like the Become Human type monocore is actually like not even really about like Connor in that case. Like, I think it's actually almost more about Hank, who's like someone who's just become so apathetic to the world and how like horrible things have gotten because of like just people stop caring, where like he's the one that like he's also someone who starts out, he's, you know, he's essentially the cop that's assigned to work with Connor and has essentially babysit him because he's still a prototype. So like, and he hates androids, so like obviously there's a lot of tension between the two of them. And he's the typical kind of like grizzled cop who like was a legend at some point but kind of has fallen off the wagon because of his own issues. And I like how like in a lot of ways, like as Connor becomes more human and starts to like learn more things, namely just from his human partner and how like he interacts with the deviants, what choices you as a player make, you see that, like, as he becomes more human, you're also kind of, like, the point of his thing is also kind of, like, getting Hank to become more human again, because he's become so, like, apathetic and turned off from humanity. He doesn't really care about anyone else, so getting him to care again, getting him to care about his machine partner, getting him to show what is truly human, which is empathy. Empathy is a human emotion, is, like, a line in the game. It's fascinating. Honestly, that's the other thing I want to, like, try to do at some point if I ever can get myself to sit down and learn the software, would be, like, video essays. Like, about... Like, you see them all over the place about things like Life is Strange, or The Last of Us, or some of these other big narrative games. You can't find any on Detroit Become Human. So I kind of want to make, like, a video essay about Detroit Become Human, just either, like, just analyze all three paths, or just analyze Connor's path, because I find it's very fascinating. It's just a lot of cool stuff. You can do it. And because another thing I studied in during my degree was like dystopian fiction. Unsurprisingly, very depressing. Dystopian fiction is kind of follows a pretty predictable pattern, but it is interesting to see how people vary, how the human race is going to die out. But so I did studies on dystopian fiction, and like people know androids from things like Blade Runner, which is honestly the only one that really uses them in any interesting ways. But I like the way that Detroit Become Human was, because it used androids in the way that I felt that they should have been used, in the fact that like this is a new life form, not just. Admittedly, when you use androids, like what was the game I saw like a while ago? Like, I think it was like Stellar Blade or something like that. When you use androids, a lot of times they're used in a post-apocalyptic world, or like Terminator or something like that. They're used in a post-apocalyptic world where the android is either the essentially is a human because humans have been wiped out, or there are so few humans that it can essentially pass as human. And the most that's different about the android is maybe it's lacking emotions, or it can do like superhuman feats. But like, I like Detroit Become Human because it kind of puts androids into the system as like a different species, which they are essentially, because they don't like, they're similar to humans, but like they just innately do things that humans cannot. Like, they're much stronger, they're more durable, they don't need to eat, stuff like that. They can break down, they can replace their body parts, like there's a lot of fascinating things you can do there. But most of the time when they show androids or stuff like that, it's usually in a world that's already been destroyed, or they're just using them as humans. And I dislike when they do this with other races, with things like vampires, elves, any sort of mythical race. I feel like you do that, you should have like different traits that okay, did I have 8? You should have different traits that race follows that isn't something that a human would do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Good. Okay, I need to single crochet across. Alrighty. Give me a second to crochet this across here. 1, 2, 3. How many does they have at the bottom? It's not a bad pattern. I wish they would have told me how many to crochet across the top. I think it's 4. We're gonna go with 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Tail. How much of a tail do we need? Guess we'll just leave a small tail. I don't know how long of a tail I'm supposed to use here. It just says tail for sewing. I'll leave a small one. But we need a sequel for that game. Now they can have some ARs. Yeah, wouldn't that be funny? They actually have stuff in it. The funny thing is, like, I've seen people like debate the idea of a sequel for Detroit Become Human, and I think it's kind of hard to do that because of the nature of being a choice-based game with 85 different endings. By making a sequel, you kind of have to canonize a particular ending, and like, there are certain things I consider were probably going to be canon one way or the other, because some of the, like, just on the nature of the characters. Like, for instance, like, some people you can do, like, with Marcus, you can do, like, you can be a more, like, destructive revolutionist, or you can be more peaceful, like Malcolm X versus Dr. Luther King. But, like, I think that Marcus would be a more peaceful revolutionary just because of the way he was essentially raised by his sort of dad artist guy that he was taking care of. Like, always taught him to, like, stand up for himself, but don't sink to their level. Use your intelligence, be peaceful. So I think that, and he also had a very good life. He was treated very well. So I don't think he would go and, like, be destructive and have a lot of anger towards humans. Like, he would definitely defend himself. But I'm like, I've seen people do where, like, he would be more destructive towards humans. And, like, that pathway just didn't seem as natural to me, because I'm like, I feel like just killing people would not be something he would do. I've not seen iRobot. I know of it. Give me a second here. I'm gonna take a little snack break. I've not seen iRobot. I know of it because obviously the way I found Detroit Become Human initially, I heard about it when it first came out. But I remember thinking remembering I saw like someone playing it and like people talking about it online, but I never actually like watched a playthrough of it. And I didn't have, the console it was on at the time. I'm not a PC gamer, and I didn't have a PlayStation until much later, but I went back before I got curious because I saw like a lore explained video, and so I got curious about the game. So me and my sister watched like the best path, like a playlist that was like essentially just a compilation of the best path, like a playthrough of the best path. And honestly, you can watch that game like a movie. Like the cinematography is great, the music is amazing. I listen to it all the time when I'm crocheting. Like you can just, we watched it like a TV show for like a week. But like after that I watched Jacksepticeye do his playthrough. He's like the only like big YouTuber I know of besides, well, maybe I think Corey Kenshin did too, but like he's the only like major YouTuber I can remember that played Detroit Become Human all the way through. A lot of them started, but he's the only one that I know of that played it all the way through, and he was like a huge fan of it. Like he even had like a whole like video collab with Brian Deckert, who's the person who did the motion capture and like acting for Connor. It's so funny watching them interact because they're both being total nerds, because Brian Deckert is a streamer, so like he always like, I think like once every 5 years he'll go back and play Detroit Become Human, because that was essentially his first major role, was playing Connor. And he does a phenomenal job. Like, the amount of emotion he can get across for, like, in a lot of ways, his role is the hardest, because, like, he said in an interview once, he's like, I had to always, like, ask before I started to see him, like, is this me playing, like, he called it Red Connor or Blue Connor, but essentially being like, how emotional can I be in the scene? Am I doing the scene where I'm mostly a human, or am I doing the scene where I'm mostly a machine and I have to be more severe? Like, he's like, I had to keep so many plot lines straight in my head when I was ever acting and emoting for this character. I'm like, yeah, that would be hard, because you have to play everything from, like, essentially the Terminator to, like, soft puppy, like, it's a lot of range for a singular character, considering how many endings it has, and, like, he has a pretty major role in the game, so. But I remember watching Jacksepticeye, and he did mention that, to get back to iRobot, I have so much attention issues, I digress a lot, but he mentioned that Detroit Become Human was a lot like iRobot. So I've never seen it, but I've heard of it, and I, like, it's supposed to have a similar plot line to like, Detroit Become Human, with the whole idea of, like, machines gaining consciousness, and can they be like a human, and I don't know the premise of, like, I don't know anything more besides that, but, like, I've heard of the movie. I don't watch a ton of movies these days, but I do watch a lot of reviews and video essays, so I have what I call osmosis knowledge about a lot of media. I know I have osmosis knowledge about, like, a lot of video games, even though I've not played a lot of things. Like, what was it? I was playing Castlevania Judgment the other day, and I'm like, I have osmosis knowledge about Castlevania because I'm online a lot. You can't not know what Castlevania is, because the Metroidvania thing is, like, a genre. But I'm like, I don't really know a lot about it. I watched, like, a video about all the lore at some point, but I've not played any of the games. So I'm like, my working knowledge of the game is very mediocre. Yeah, I know more about the animation than the games. Like Detroit Become Human, I think you'll enjoy this movie. Like you said, the robots are integrated into society and it's not post-apocalyptic. Like, yeah. Then maybe I'll make, again, I don't watch a ton of movies just because I work three jobs. So, like, I do a lot. When I'm not working, I'm crocheting. When I'm not crocheting, I'm sleeping. If I can, I try and get some video game time in, or, like, the last few days I was trying to write some short stories, but like I just don't watch as much as things that I want. I have like a list of movies and anime I want to watch. But even if I can't watch the movie, maybe I'll watch a review in the movie. But I have heard of it. That was the biggest thing I liked about Detroit Become Human. I remember saying that when we first... Again, if you want to see my playthrough of Detroit Become Human, that is on my YouTube channel. It's under the same name, Cozy Gamers. It's the one with a little dragon icon, not the one with the bird icon. There's someone else with a very similar sounding title that has a bird icon. Mine's the one with the dragon icon. But if you go on my YouTube, like, Cozy Gamers, that's where I put all my VODs are there. And you can see my playthrough. I did Detroit Become Human. But in the first one we did, I remember... saying like the biggest thing I liked about it is that like you're in a world that isn't destroyed yet, but more importantly you're in a world that's beautiful, and the seasons change as obviously the game gets more tumultuous and the revolution goes farther, and like it goes from like a beautiful fall to a cold and like bitter winter. So much thematic stuff in that game. I could just sit and like wax poetic about it for hours, and I have on different streams. But I like the fact that it isn't just the fact that the world isn't post-apocalyptic, because you've also have like things like cyberpunk or like grunge, that where the world isn't in apocalyptic state, but it is like something like Avatar, where the world is in a very like dirty or destroyed state, even if it's not apocalyptic event where all the humans are dead. Like it's in a dirty state, but like I like the fact that Detroit Become Human, and especially in the beginning, the world is still very beautiful, especially if you look at some of the scenes like where Marcus' story first starts. The world's very beautiful. It's full of colors. There's still people about. Obviously, there's tensions and problems boiling beneath the surface, but the world is still beautiful. Like, it's not a matter of like, oh, this is life or death for humanity. Like, it's not. Unless you take certain endings, but like, for the most part, it's not. It's more a matter of like, the world is still in a state to be saved. It's not like we're trying to be like, you know, WALL-E, and we're trying to bring back a world that's already been destroyed. It's like, no, the world is still in a beautiful state. It's just like, and that's why I think it's most interesting to bring in the android factor, because then like you can deal with, like, how would they realistically work within a society? So 3 jobs, going to graduate school, and streaming on top of that. I don't even know. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's been really hard for me to stream lately, even. When in an increase. Okay, I'm gonna count this to make sure I don't miscount my stitches again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All these tail pieces probably not going to look the same, but I'm going to do my best. I don't know how I can do the same thing over and over again and still get different looking things. But, let's see. Single round. And, yeah, I have... yeah, that's why I just don't have a lot of time for movies. I have to, like, fight to watch a TV show. Like, the ones that I've watched recently are ones that are, like, short, where I know there's, like, 12 episodes, so I can get it done in, like, a day or two. Like, playing video games, I have so many I want to play, because I love JRPGs, but, like, just getting the time to sit down and do them. I originally tried to start a blog, like, as a game journal, to try and, like, get myself to play more games, and I did that in the fall of last year, and then different just craziness happened, and my schedule fell apart, and I've not gone back to it since, so the best I can do is try and play them on stream. But then even then, since this new year has started, namely since, like, March, I've really struggled to, like, stream consistently. Like, I stream games on Tuesday, I try and do that, but, like, I used to stream more often during the week and do crochet chats. And I originally liked doing video games 2 times a week, like Tuesday, Thursday. But lately, it's all I can do to just get the Tuesday stream where I play games. Like, that's why I'm coming on here to do a little, like, crochet stream. But, like, man, it's like, it's rough. And like I'm preschool teacher, I do nannying and some tutoring. And then I have my small business I'm running with my sister. So like, which means that I'm constantly making crochet stuff to sell on said business. But like, it means I'm just constantly working on something. And yeah, it does get tiring. I mean, up until recently, I was the DM in a campaign. We're on break right now, so we did D&D, and I like DM'd. It's a campaign that's been going for a couple years now, and we are finishing our third major arc. So like that took up my weekends too, and like I'm retiring now, but like I used to be a color guard instructor in the fall, so those took up like all of my weekends because of band competitions and band camp in the summer, and free time. What is that? I have to hop off. Nice talk to you. I followed, and I'll stop distracting you from your crochet. Oh, thank you for stopping by. I'm so glad that we were able to have a nice chat here. I hope you'll be able to stop by again. Thanks for following. Have a good afternoon, day, whatever it is, wherever you're at. Although, to be honest, I would distract myself. If there's people to chat with, or there's people who aren't here to chat with, I'll distract myself, because I'll keep chatting regardless. Like I said at the beginning of the stream, like, I generally do fall into the, like, I'll generally be quiet if I'm really focusing on something, but I'm like, I also am someone who, like, doesn't like quiet, so I might just start chatting and blabbing about something because I'm autistic and I like to focus on things. And I like to chat, and just, this is kind of my way of, like, maybe it's even an anxiety response to just randomly spout out whatever video game movie knowledge I have. I did once on our old channel. We used to have an old channel on Twitch. I think it was like called Mad Evil Eye or something like that. It was me and my two other sisters' names. But like we had a my mom. Family member cameo. Mark it off your bingo cards. But we had my old channel. I once talked about Gothic literature for 2 hours straight. And it was because Resident Evil 8 had just come out. So I was essentially just analyzing all the different Gothic, like, literary, like, allegories and allusions that were in that game. And I don't like horror games. I just like the fact that that one had a lot of cool, like, Gothic references in it. So I talked about it for, like, 2 hours. Like, feel free to distract me, because if not, I'll distract myself. No problem with it. And also, I can maintain a pretty good conversation while I'm crocheting. It's just right now I'm doing something that, like, is tinier, so I do have to pay attention a little bit more. But, like, if I'm doing, like, a big project or something that requires, like, a lot of rows, I can crochet quite a lot while maintaining conversation. What's up, Mom?
Are you crocheting?
Yes. What's up?
I wanted to know what you wanted for dinner.
I'm not sure. I had soup for lunch, so. Yeah. I don't know. When in doubt, I usually say chicken.
Or if you wanted to go outside, there's no food.
Yeah. Until after I got COVID, and then like during like obviously when we were all in lockdown. And I think that just messed with my like brain chemicals somehow, because I got so much worse like social anxiety after that. So sometimes even going to like restaurants can be stressful for me. But let me make sure I'm on the right row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, just want to make sure. I was pretty sure I was on the right row, but I just want to make sure. But I had like a worse social anxiety for a while. I couldn't. It was hard to leave the house. Like I was in a D&D campaign, and it was hard just to leave. I would like get panicky and short of breath when I left the house. I'm still honestly struggle a lot sometimes with going to restaurants, planning things, the fear of plans falling through, traveling great distances, sensory overwhelm. I'm a little bit more sensitive to now. So like, sometimes I'm kind of like, yeah, let's go out. And other times I'm just kind of like, the thought of going out Makes me suddenly feel very stressed. But anyway. I am going to indeed try and finish this round so I can get back to the point where I am not as... I think I forgot to put the fan on in here because when I don't put the fan on, the air in here doesn't circulate properly and then it gets very dry and my throat gets very dry fast. Which is also hard when I start talking a lot because then it's like it's harder to talk. So, I'm going to talk a little bit, but I also will still hold my tag of like, unless someone's like, you know, directly chatting and asking me some questions, I might just get a little quiet and follow what I'm doing on my hook right here. I really hope I'm doing this right. When I'm doing pattern for the first time, I'm always like, I hope this is how this is supposed to look. Like, I can read patterns pretty well. I've been crocheting for about a year at this point. But I still always go and like doubt myself when I look at the picture and be like, mine doesn't look like that. But most of the time it's just because my tension is different. Because obviously as someone with like, you know, anxiety and stuff, I have a lot of stress and tension. So it means I hold my hands very tightly. So, there's a random knot in my yarn, alright. But, right now I'm using like plush blanket yarn. It's kind of... I realize I probably should move my microphone so people can actually see what I'm doing. Sorry if everyone's been trying to watch me crochet and you can't see me. I just now realizing my microphone's been in front of my hook this whole time. That's why I need a manager or something. Someone who can like manage my stuff and tell me like from the other side of the screen like, hey, your thing doesn't look right. We can't see what you're actually working on. Like, again, playing Castlevania Judgment earlier this week. I did not realize my microphone was not being picked up by my streaming software. So, none of my audio came through for the first 53 minutes of that stream. Which was great. Thankfully, I wasn't talking a lot. Like, I was playing a fighter game, which I'm not good at. So I was focusing more on trying to play the game, but I was talking somewhat. So I'm like, cool, none of that recorded. Great, I feel like an idiot. So I just didn't do that, but I try my best. I've always been, I mean, when we first initially tried streaming years and years ago, we had a webcam mounted on a bunch of cereal boxes and held together with duct tape, so I have an actual tripod and camera now. We have an actual like microphone and camera arm. I have a much better seat that isn't plastic folding chair, so we've definitely upgraded. I also speak in wheel a lot because originally this channel started with me and my sister, but she's kind of just been very busy with her own jobs that like she's not been able to join me as much. She plans to like maybe sometime in the summer, but we'll see. I in the meanwhile just kind of do myself and, you know, chat, crochet, stuff I do. So we go and have increased our, like, at least aesthetics and tech of our streams, but sometimes I'm just, like, kind of just waiting for the next thing to break. The next thing to go wrong, for the next technical difficulty. And that's probably the more pessimistic way of doing it, but such as it is. I think I'm going to try and do my second one. I think I'm going to try and do at least 3 of these tail pieces so I can get one half the tail done. I don't know what I'm going to do. I have to make 6. Don't know if I'm going to do all 6. Because it sounds like I also have to go and see about dinner with my family downstairs, but I'm going to at the very least finish the second one off, maybe get another third one going, which I probably could if I actually focused on what I was doing. Which unfortunately I'm not, but just because I enjoy a good conversation. It's not that I can't maintain conversation while I'm crocheting, it's more like when I get very passionate, I want to gesture around with my hands, and I want to, you know, like, look dead in the camera and stuff like that. So, like, it's more that, like, when I get really excited, I want to, like, do something else with my hands that isn't, like, you know, continuing to make stitches. So, that's what happens when I get a little bit more on the passionate side. Okay, 2 in an increase, and then 1 in a decrease already. So let's finish the last row of this one, fasten it off. I think I can try and get one more done. I wasn't intending for this to be a terribly long stream anyway. just kind of wanted to, like, sometimes I have to, like, pin myself down and hold myself accountable, like, by putting myself on camera in order to actually work on stuff. It's kind of like body doubling in a way, where, like, you know, if I feel like there's other people in the room with me, then it's easier for me to, like, stay focused and work. But then, like, if I just sit by myself, sometimes I'll just sit on my phone or something and won't do what I'm supposed to be doing. So that's kind of the reasoning behind why I'm here. And also sometimes I just have things to talk about that I want to talk about, like, you know, with crochet. And it's an easy thing for me to do while speaking. Because honestly, I really have to play like a cozy game or a mindless game like Pokemon in order to, like, maintain conversation when I'm playing video games sometimes. Because otherwise I really, like, will be focusing on it. Or, like, what we used to do was my sister would play the video games and I would commentate on them. Which in that case, I'm not playing the game, so I could, you know, freely talk about it. That's what we did for a good amount of Detroit Become Human, was that my sister played, and then I commented on the game itself as we played. Which worked pretty well. I think it was the last time she was on stream was when we did our Detroit Become Human playthrough. Good game. Okay, we got 2 tail pieces, and they... Like, that first one just looks really thin at the bottom, and I'm not sure why, but... whatever. Okay, that's 2. Start another one. Also think about what I want to eat. Just came out with some food options, so I had to text those to my mom. Okay, let's see if I can get one more tail piece done. Because then I'll have 3, and that will be halfway there. I need to have 6. And honestly, doing repetitive body parts is just what it is. It's repetitive. At least when I'm doing, like, a bigger thing, I can kind of see it form, take shape. Or, like, if I'm making a head, then I'm making one of those, and then I'm making maybe 2 arms and 2 legs and tail. Like, there's more variety between the pieces, and you can kind of see the thing forming. This one's just kind of like, I have to make 6 tail pieces, and then, like, stitch them all together, which just feels tedious. But I've already done all the other pieces of the pattern, so I gotta do the tedious parts too. Also, that's the beauty about having a attention thing, having, like, you know, having an attention deficit. Sometimes you hyper-focus, and sometimes you're like, this sounds like the most boring thing in the world. There's no real on or off switch. I just have to do your best to go with the flow on it. I'm going to pay attention to this one so I make sure I don't accidentally end up with 7 stitches again. Because it seems like once I get past this initial 3 rows... Sorry if I whacked the microphone. It seems to be okay. But it's like, this is the area where for some reason I keep accidentally ending up with an extra stitch, which is weird. Come on, flip inside out. When it comes to small amounts of stitches, this is the part I hate the most, when I have to flip it from the wrong side out to the right side out. Because sometimes it goes very easy, and sometimes it just fights me. Okay, I think we got it that time. Alrighty. Use this, you know, the biggest thing that's been with crochet, like kind of like any art form you're picking up, is that it's not a matter of like you suddenly become good or something like that. It's more like you know the basics, and then you keep practicing the basics so you know how to like use them properly. It's kind of like learning color theory or grammar rules. Is like you know the rules so you know how to break them, or you know what to do when you end up in a spot where like things did not go the way you expected, but you know how to get yourself out of a jam. That's the way it is with crochet, where I'm like, I don't always necessarily know what I'm doing, but I know enough knowledge that I can get myself out of a problem if I fall into one. 2, 3. Okay. This is where I screwed up last time. 1. 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What's next? Six around. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I wonder if they just look angry sometimes on my stream, because when I focus, I guess I look really intense. Another wonderful thing about like the autism is that you're not always the best at social expressions. And I'm a female, so it means that I have like better social programming, so to speak, in like, language and emotion centers than males would, but like still leaves me being very like stiff and robotic at times. I have a resting, like, distressed face. One. But there's something else I was going to mention. I'm trying to remember what it was now. Fortunately, that's the other thing. Is like if I'm having an active conversation with someone, like I can just go from like thought to thought very fast, very quick. That's why sometimes it's hard to keep up with me when I'm talking to someone, because I can digress and change topic very fast. Because that's how my brain works. But at the same time, I also, like, once I, like, jump off of that train and my train of thought stops, and I, either switch to a new topic or find distraction or let myself go quiet for a little while, then, like, my thought processes will just, like, freeze, and all of a sudden I'll be like, what was I talking about? Now I can't find any of my thoughts. Or, like, when you're done, like, having, like, a rant or, like, a lecture, as I like to call them, I'll, like, look back and be like, I don't remember anything of what I was talking about. I don't know where I was going with that point. Like, it's like when you're in that stream of consciousness, it's very strong and you, like, immediately know where you're going, but then, like, as soon as you get out of it, you're, like, off the train and it's running off down the track and you're like, well, I have no clue what I was talking about now. So I guess I'm just gonna go quiet while I try and remember what that guy was talking about. I mean, to be fair, this is all about chill crochet chat vibes. Single around. One. Make sure I still have the side right stitch count. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Alright. It's 2 and an increase. I was going to mention something, I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it had to do with when I was mentioning before, I haven't gotten a chance to watch a lot of movies lately because movies kind of take a little bit more of a time sink. I did watch recently a virtual concert essentially for Lindsey Stirling. It was her for her Moment tour, and man, it was so good. Like, I love her like music. I've followed her essentially since she started on YouTube like years ago. But like, man, what an inspirational lady. What she's so like positive, and like she had this whole message about like, you know, dealing with anxiety of feeling like you're not going anywhere in life. And I'm like, man, I need to hear this message right now, because I've been, me, my mom, and my sister, like, we've all been kind of feeling that, like, as you're getting towards the end of the school year. And like, it was amazing. Like, she did some really great mashups of her like old songs and her new songs. Like, besides just doing like the dancing that she's known for, like, she was doing like aerial silk, she was doing like hoop tricks, like, you know, like where you're like in the hoop, in like aerial hoop stuff. Like, she was doing obviously dancing like she normally does, and all while she's playing the violin. Like, at some point she was playing the violin upside down. Like, she's so muscular, so talented, so like coordinated. And I like it because she goes and she's like always has like the same feeling I do, like, you've come so far. Like, she's grown so much. I've watched her since like she first started on YouTube. He's just grown and improved so much over the years, and it always makes me feel like I can grow and improve no matter how far in life I get. Like, I'm almost 30 now, and I'm just kind of like, you know, you can't help but think like, you know, have I wasted all my time? Like, you know, am I past the prime of my life? But then you also have to be like, you know, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep trying, keep getting better. Like, I'm picked up a lot of new skills in the last few years. I'm doing things even if it is at my own speed and I'm going a little slow because of just the way I am. But I'm making progress. I have things I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to get better, and, you know, progress is slow. It took her like she said, she's like 13 years to get where she's at now, and I'm like, that's a long time. But that's okay. Like, because then I feel like I can get where I need to go even if it takes me a while, like to write that book or to, you know, make a video essay on YouTube or like whatever. Like, I just have to kind of keep stepping at it and do it one at a time. But it was a really cool concert. I really love watching her. Like, she's got such good music. I have like a whole playlist that's like mostly her music that's just for when I'm like drawing or working on art stuff. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Am I on round 9 or row 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'm on row 10. Okay. But like, so great concert, very inspirational. Best $16 I ever paid. Like, you know, whole family watched it in the living room. It was so good. I saw her in concert in like live once, and I'm like, man, if she did more virtual concerts, I would go to every single one of them. Because but the reason I was bringing that up is because like it was brought up earlier how like I don't have a lot, because I do a lot of things. I have a lot of activities. Like, it's weird for me not to be busy. It's weird for my brain not to be buzzing with 1,000 ideas. Like, is brought up how like I don't have a lot of time to watch movies because, you know, it takes like a few hours to do movies, and so therefore I don't have a lot of time to do TV shows either. Like, I remember, like I mentioned, Castlevania, the animated show. Like, I watched the first 2 seasons with a friend, and then it took me like another, like, I don't even know why. I think it was, maybe it was when I bought Castlevania Judgment initially, or maybe it was just, well, I was going through a vampire phase. Because I randomly have moments of just going through gothic phases where I'm just in love with everything dark and red and, like, Baroque styled. But, like, I went back and then rewatched the first 2 seasons, and then finally got around to watching the second 2 seasons, like, because there's 4 seasons total. To be fair, the first season is like 4 episodes, so it's kind of more like 3 seasons when you add it all up. But I finally went back to watch like season 3 and 4, and like that was one of those things where like I had to go and like just lock myself in a room and like be like, I'm gonna just kind of watch like 4 or 5 episodes, and like where I'm like gonna watch them until someone disturbs me, and I just tried to get through it as quickly as I could. Because I'm like, otherwise, I'm never going to finish the show. And it was like 2 years after the show actually ended. Like, they were already on to the Castlevania Nocturne by then, which was another edition spin-off of the original, like, series. And, like, it took me forever just to finish that. And, like, the one I was thinking about recently about maybe going back and, you know, it's been so long since I watch, like, I start shows and then and a lot of times I don't finish them. And so, like, then it's kind of like, you know, when you stop playing an RPG. When you stop playing an RPG, it's so hard to just jump back into them where you left off, so you usually end up starting the game over, and then, like, you know, working up to where you used to be, and hopefully completing it. And this kind of TV shows can be the same way, where, like, you stop watching it for a while, sometimes especially it's a long-running series, or at least one with a lot of episodes, it's hard to just jump back into it, especially if it's, like, one that isn't, like, you know, Slice of Life, or, like, you know, Monster of the Week sort of format, if they're ones that actually build over time and you need to keep up with, like, the story format. Like, a show like Criminal Minds, I wouldn't generally have to, like, which was another one of my favorite shows. That's another one I thought of making a video essay on, because there's no, like, there's a lot of video retrospectives nowadays of old shows, especially shows that are, like, crime-based. No video retrospectives of Criminal Minds, which is very strange. So I might have to do that at some point. Like, I'll rewatch the whole series and just go play by play. I think that'd be a fun thing to do. But, I've, like, another series that I started watching, like, when it was, like, airing in, like, maybe its 3rd or 4th season. Or maybe the show was getting ready, like, it was, like, a year from closing. Like, it was, like, another year and then the final season was gonna air. But, like, Voltron Legendary Defender, again, another Netflix series, was one that I started watching because I was very, like, I vaguely knew there was a fandom and that some people were really, like, some of my friends were really into it at the time. But, like, I generally get into things because I'm drawn to them myself before I'm going to try something because everyone else is doing it. In fact, half the time I won't do it if everyone else is doing it, because I'll be like, well, I'll watch someone else do it. then I don't need to do it myself. Usually I like going into experiences because I want to find out more about them, so if someone else is willing to tell me everything, then I'm not going to do it myself half the time. Unless, it's something that's really good, like, I watched Detroit Become Human and then was so in love with it that I had to try and play the game myself. And it was a totally new experience, even though I knew exactly, like, I still went for the best ending, so I knew exactly what I was going to try and do. But it still was a totally different experience playing it. Great experience, though. But Voltron Legendary Defender was a show I started watching because I knew it was kind of popular at the time. And also, like, I was in an apartment, so the most I had for, like, TV entertainment was Netflix. Back when Netflix was the only streaming service, what a different time that was. I started watching that show just because, the trailers looked interesting, the animation looked good, and, so I started watching it, and I really enjoyed it. It was my show I would watch on the treadmill, which was my way of, like, because sometimes I'll burn through topics, like, again, I have special interests, and I have hyperfixations, so, like, it means that sometimes, like, I, like, burn through things really fast because I'll get very focused on them. But I didn't want to do that, so essentially I made it so, like, I only watched the show when I was on the treadmill, which means that, like, one, it got me to exercise more often, but also so that I just didn't burn through the series in, like, a single afternoon. I was afraid I would do it, I would get too obsessed, and I would get, like, ignore other things I had to do, like, work, homework, and stuff like that, because I was in college at the time. Or I was, like, finishing my senior year of college. So, I watched the show, and I think I got to season 3, maybe season 4. I think it was season 3, because the point is, like, I remember it was right before there was, like, a major change, and, like they had just been the main villain, which I think was season 3. So, like, it was, like, when they were in transitionary period before the next villain comes down the pipeline, and I just started that, like, arc. But, I think I either stopped it because, like, we might have moved out of my apartment, or I might have, like, lost Netflix. But there was a reason I stopped watching it. Or maybe it was because, like, my schedule got more busy, so I stopped walking. Like, there was some reason, like, I stopped watching it, but it wasn't like I was getting disinterested. It was more like something happened, like, this also happens a lot to me with games. But something happened in my schedule that kept me from, like, that essentially broke my routine. So I didn't do it as often as I did. Yeah, I got me some text messages here. So, like, I was thinking about, I don't know why, but for some reason I stopped watching it. And then the show ended, apparently, like, it had a lot of mixed reviews on it. And so, like, and I left the show essentially on a positive note, where I still had a very, like, high opinion of the show. I liked it. I could see it's, like, any show would have flaws. But it also, again, it was, like, a cartoon show. And honestly, it kind of very Saturday AM cartoon that, like, it's a reboot of a reboot, essentially, like one of a few reboots that was for the original Voltron Legendary Defender TV show. So, like, you know, the original one is kind of, in short, just old. So, like, you know, it was an updated version, so it's kind of like, it's like when you, like, you're, kind of like the way the Disney reboots are. It's like when you're upgrading an old property, it's like sometimes you're just like, how can you rework this a little bit? You know, like I wasn't looking for like like I was someone who watched a lot of like Super Friends growing up, and I love that show. Like when I get into like superhero mode, I don't really care if they have super deep storylines. It's nice when they do, but I'm also someone who's just like, yep, just show me them fighting stuff. Show me them the cool animation when they make the mech. Like it's nice when the characters have personalities, and it's nice when the characters have backstories, and it's nice when they build over time. That's why I came to love Steven Universe so much as a show. But I'm also down for them just doing, like, magic shenanigans. So, like, Voltron, I was kind of like, sometimes I'm okay with them just going and fighting the evil empire, you know, and just learning stuff about their different, like, you know, becoming this found family team and fighting the bad guys. Like, I was also entirely okay with them just doing that. So, like, I left the show in a place where I was actually, like, pretty happy with it. And I don't know if, how much better or worse. I hear there was a lot of very mixed opinions at the time. Although, because, like, then many years later, I went back to, like, I essentially saw, like, a retrospective, like, on the show. And it sounded like it had, unfortunately, a similar issue that RWBY did, which is, you know, another, like, American-made animation that I was very into during college. I got so hyperfixated on RWBY for a while. And looking back on it, I was a little nuts. But, the show, I always knew the show wasn't the best, but it's like some of the flaws that, like, I definitely did not acknowledge at the time. But also there was a lot of things that, like, I was bothered by at the time that when looking back on, I'm like, it's really actually was not that bad. Like, it's one of those things, like, when you put your expectations in check, I enjoyed the show. Like, I went back to rewatch, like, a couple of, like, the later seasons of RWBY. And I realized once my expectations were in check, namely when I was not feeding negativity from, like, my friends, people in the fandom that I was interacting with at the time, I enjoyed the show way more. It's kind of like when I didn't, like, let myself get so... Because I'm a very empathetic person, so I really draw off it. Like, I'm an introvert, but I also really can, like, feel the emotions of other people in the room. I empathize to people very strongly. I can kind of almost, like, soak up emotions of other people around me. So, has advantages and disadvantages, I'll tell you that much. Okay, let me count these off so I make sure that I have the right amount of stitches this time. There's one with a 6 that I always manage to get wrong. So 1... 2... 3... 4... 5... 6. Okay. 6 for sure. That's good. But anyway, so, like, RWBY's issue, essentially, RWBY had some unfortunate things. Like, the show's original creator unfortunately died from an allergic reaction during a medical procedure. So, like, died at, like, 24, which is just so tragic. Like, I wasn't that old yet, but, like, you know, I'm well over that old now. And looking back on it, I'm like, that's horrible. So the show lost its main creator and animator, Monty. So that was horrible. So the show had to really kind of pivot itself to try and keep going after that. And the people who took over did their best, but admittedly they were not, like, story writers. Like, they were his best friends in the producers, but, like, in animators, but, like, they weren't story writers. So the first one was kind of just a rough season because they didn't know how to properly pace a story. And then once they brought in some outside help, the story was able to get back on track, but then they were also kind of making it for lost time in the season that they essentially just wasted. Just from mismanagement and poor pacing. So, like, the show always felt like it was kind of limping to catch up the extra space. Like, so it did eventually get much better. But it's just, like, there was definitely kind of a weird period in the middle where, like, the tone just felt, like, rushed. And there were definitely times when it felt like they made sudden plot changes because the fandom really wanted them to. Like, there was this one particular ship in RWBY called Bumblebee, which was between, like, two of these teammates, these two girls. Who, mind you, in the original seasons, I actually really liked their dynamic, because it was essentially, like, sun to dark. Like, you know, they had a good, like, counterbalance. I really liked their friendship. And had they gone from there and grown, I could have potentially seen them becoming a couple, but they at that point were good partners, and then growing and become good friends. So I feel like if you're going to make a realistic, like, ship, a realistic romantic pairing, you gotta be friends first. You gotta see chemistry between the characters. They have to seem like they got each other. Like, I feel like in order to make a believable romance in my eyes, it should be something that can also be interpreted as friendship. Like, a lot of people are like, they're clearly friends, like when you're talking about ships online, but I'm like, no, that's the best part. A good ship, a believable ship that could be canon, is one that could also be a great friendship. Or even a family bond. Like, a good ship should be people that are immensely close. That can also count for a friendship. So, like, if you don't ship it, that's fine, but you have to acknowledge these characters are close. Like, Phoenix and Edgeworth in, like, Ace Attorney. They're never officially confirmed to be, like, a couple, but, like, they have an incredibly close, like, soulmate-like bond that, like, you could just say they're colleagues. You cannot say they aren't friends, and you cannot say that they don't have a close bond. You could say they're not romantic, but it's also very strongly likely that they are. Especially when you compare, like, how they behave with, like, you know, the opposite sex versus, like, past relationships or lack thereof. But the lengths they, like, yeah. He's just a friend, and I flew across the ocean on a 3 a.m., like, red-eye flight to come because I heard that he might be in trouble. Sure. You keep telling yourself that, dude. So, to an increase. So like, ships need to have a strong friendship starting point, I think, or at least some strong connection between, like, a bond between the characters that, like, a good ship should be one that we cheer for when it happens. But not as in, like, oh, now we can finally get the romance. Like, no, as in, like, we have crossed the finish line. Like, I want to see that it's been built, that these two have felt so natural together, that romance felt like the next step. Like, they were already close partners, close friends, whatever, and then romance felt like the next step. Now, they did this very well with a different pair of partners, who were, what was it? I don't remember what the official name was. I think it was like Thunderflowers or something like that, but Ren and Nora were partners in that show as well. Best romantic pairing they had in the whole show, because it felt so natural, and it was built very well in terms of, like, two close friends who were practically siblings at this point. Hey there. Nemas9, I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm crocheting tail pieces. Making a Mesprit, plushie. So I'm crocheting tail pieces. It's kind of tedious and boring, which is why I do it on stream, because then it forces me to work by essentially body doubling with people online. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, good. But, and I'm just kind of talking idly about TV shows at the moment. Right now I'm talking about RWBY. But, I will probably diverge and change topic randomly, but that's also how my brain works. I can cover many topics in the span of a very short period of time. But, I really am sometimes just so torn on RWBY, because, like, it did a great relationship with Ren and Nora. Like, it had a great thing of them being, like, close friends, practically brother and sister in a lot of ways. But, like, it was clear that, like, you know, they're, you know, teenagers, they're close, they're partners. But, like, you knew that, like, for instance, the girl, she very much, like, liked him. But you couldn't tell if he liked her, because he was a very stoic sort of guy. And, you know, not very expressive, so you're like, she's just kind of like, hey, I like him, I've liked him for a while, but do I break up, you know, do I potentially ruin our friendship by acknowledging I like him? You know, it's one of those things. But, like, the thing was, like, yes, of course you wanted them to get together. Of course you wanted them to admit they loved each other. You want to see them kiss. But, like, that was the thing. Like, if they didn't, you also were happy with that because their dynamic was so strong. They were so close with each other. They cared about each other so deeply that even if they didn't get together, you would still be happy with that because they cared so deeply about each other. That's what made the relationship so good. Like, you know, they admit they like each other. They, like, kind of stumble a little bit trying to figure out what their relationship is now after they kind of acknowledge that. And it's rough because both of them are going through their own issues and they kind of push back and forth. But at the end of the day, like, they never have, like, a huge breakup scene. It's more just kind of like they have trouble communicating for, like, the first time ever when they've always known each other so well. Because there's other stresses now. And, like, I like the fact that, like, they essentially have this whole thing where, like, they kind of are on different levels. Like, they have a moment where they actually do manage to get, like, you know, their first kiss, acknowledge they like each other, and then some tragedy happens, which immediately puts stress on both of them. And then, like, he has the issue of, like, he isn't expressing his feelings properly to her, so they have, like, this whole disconnect. They end up fighting, not like a breakup way, but just, like, they have a difference of opinion. And, like, he's being kind of nasty to not just her, but, like, his other teammates. But then it comes around, and then, you know, like, she gets really badly hurt while they're separated, and he goes to essentially apologize to her and be like, hey, I was being horrible, and she's, like, you know, kind of being down on herself. But, like, you know, he has a perfect, like, whole, like, thing of essentially taking accountability for his bad behavior, but also going out and being like, I've been afraid to say it, but I love you. You know that, right? And, like, you know, they have, like, this whole point where, like, you know, she's having a rough time, she's very hurt, she's, you know, she's like, and she has this whole, like, talk to him where she's like, I've always loved you, but I think I need to work on me first, before I can give you that love back, because, you know, like, I think I need to figure out me, because I'm not in a good place right now. And she's like, is that okay? And he's like, of course, you know, I'll always love you, and I'm here, I'm your partner, I'm your best friend, I'm here to support you, I'll be waiting as soon as you're ready, but I just want you to know that I do return your feelings. I'm like, man, what a healthy relationship. And these two are, like, 19 at best, you know, like, it hurts only because there's that relationship. But then we have in RWBY, we have Bumblebee. Bumblebee is a ship that I definitely can see possible. And in the early seasons, I definitely could see growing to that. However, the issue that arose is between these two girls, Blake and Yang, is that it was kind of back and forth between that and the other rival ship was Black Sun, which was Blake and another guy named Sun. And the idea was, like, you know, I firstly thought that was a more reasonable one because he seemed like the better person for her. He was, again, he had more, like, a good friend vibe, but it could have gone either way. But then after, like, there's this big tragedy, like, this big, like, change, like, status quo shifts, like, you know, war arc begins, so to speak. And so Yang and Blake have this big disconnect because Yang is badly hurt protecting her. So she runs away, and it sets them back really far. Like, it brings into question their friendship. Both of them are very hurt. She's run away from all her friends when they need her most. Like, she has to do a lot of growing on her own. They all do have to, like, the whole team splits up. They all have to do a bunch of growing on their own, essentially. But, like, the thing is that, like, during this time, the other guy, Sun, is there to essentially be there, and like, he's not looking for anything romantic. He's just there to support her, because he's a good friend to her. And that was when I'm like, okay, this feels like the more natural ship right now, because, like, she tries to abandon everyone, and they kind of ditch her too. But, like, this guy follows after her, and when she tries to push him away, he says no. He pushes back against her and says, you need to stop, you know, pushing people out. You can be afraid to lose people. I get you've lost people, but you can't take people's agency away. They are allowed to care for you and to fight for you, and you cannot be angry when they do that. Because, you know, that hurts more than the potential of us getting wounded helping you. And essentially, it's tapping into her, like, guilt over her friend being, her partner being hurt. And it was such a good talk. Like, she does such good character growth. Because she was a character I didn't really like, but she did such good character growth in that season. And it was largely thanks to the support of this guy. So, like, I was feeling like that was a way more natural ship direction to go in. But, you know, the fandom really loved Bumblebee. Because it's this one, like, you know, female gay ship. And it's not like it didn't have potential. But the fandom really liked Bumblebee. So when the two characters came back and they had their reunion, it was nice. It was sweet. But the thing was, these two had been apart for very long. They essentially had destroyed their partnership and destroyed their friendships. They essentially had to figure out how to, get back on the wagon and figure out partnership again, figure out friendship again, and then maybe they could figure out romance. But the writers knew the fans really wanted Bumblebee. So what do they do in the next season? They ship off the guy who was with Blake originally. Sun just kind of walks off into the sunset, being like, hey, I'm just going to be a friend. I don't want to be romantic with her. And weird. He was flirting with her a lot before, so why is he suddenly not interested in her? And then also in that season, she not only repairs her partnership and friendship with Yang, but then they're immediately hinting at the romantic undertones. I'm like, wait a minute. It's been all of one season after you guys have spent 2 seasons apart. You can't just suddenly pick up where you left off. You have so much to discuss. You have to figure out how to be friends again. They're so tense and kind of around each other that, and then, the next season after that, they're immediately, pseudo-dating. And you're like, what the... There's no build-up to this. You guys had completely busted your friendship. You needed to work back from that. There just feels like there's a lot of questions that haven't been asked and things that haven't been said, and all of a sudden they're practically dating and flirting with each other. She's commenting about how cute her hair looks. I'm like, I don't want you flirting with each other. You guys were yelling at each other just last season because you had your problems and issues that you were both trying to work out. Essentially it was one of those you two needed to work on you first. Both of you needed to work on yourselves. And while Blake had worked on herself, Yang hadn't worked on herself very much. She still clearly had a lot of issues. So they need to work on themselves first. And they were making steps forward, but they went to romantic way too fast. They should have gone to being better friends and establishing their bond as partners. And then after they have gotten that friendship back, then maybe what was originally just a genuine compliment becomes flirting, And then from flirting, you go into a ship. But they just became romantic so fast. And unfortunately, it just felt like they were just doing it because the fans wanted it. It didn't feel genuine, which is sad because, again, right across the way, they had this other very good ship that was very well written and very well paced. But it was almost you can sometimes just tell when the writers are listening a little too much to the fandom. And be aware, fans 9% of the time do not know what they want. They certainly don't know as a group what they want. So generally, while you can listen to fans to some degree, especially as a correcting guide rails to keep you on track, you should generally go with what you originally planned and have confidence in your own story and have a roadmap of where you want to go and not suddenly change course because the fans really want this thing, because odds are they don't know what they really want, so they might not. If you suddenly change track to do what the fans want and you do it wrong, the fans aren't going to be happy. Now they're going to be angry about something else. The fans will always find something else that they want. They always found something else they be angry about. Okay, am I on 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep, I'm on 10. I want to make sure. So, why was I bringing this up? So the reason I brought up RWBY, and to bring it all back around when I originally started with Voltron, again, you gotta love having an ADHD brain, but is that Voltron, I think, did the same thing. Again, I don't know for sure because I was not in the I never got into the Voltron fandom. I watched the show essentially blind when I initially watched it. So I knew nothing of the fandom. I knew vaguely of what ships existed, but I knew nothing of the fandom. Let me put it this way. I know of the fandom fires that were going on at the time, but I wasn't in the fandom and aware of what was going on at the time. But from what I heard when I watched a retrospective video, apparently the creators were doing a similar thing where they knew the fans wanted a particular ship to happen. So they teased about it in a lot of their marketing and Twitter material. But then when that ship didn't happen, in fact, when that ship was essentially made non-canon, or essentially they made it as like they did something completely different, or they put their gay representation somewhere else that was honestly kind of meaningless, the fans were angry. Rightfully so. But then that also meant, like, you know, as this person pointed out in the retrospective, a lot of people thought the final season sucked because of those outside factors, not necessarily from the show itself being bad. Which apparently, you know, is always a big problem. Which is essentially what happened with me and Ruby, is that I'm like, I was angry at the time because of outside factors in the fandom. But then, like, after I left the fandom and then re-watched the show, like, years later, I'm like, actually, I can enjoy this way more when I'm not so, like, heavily engrossed and feeding off the negativity of other people. When I just enjoy it for the simple pleasure of what it is, I enjoyed the show way more. And it did get better over time. There were still stupid things in it that I didn't like at all, but, like, and there's some of the things that frustrated me still frustrated me. But I generally enjoyed it a lot more because I wasn't so triggered by everything. And so that's why I kind of always stayed out of the Voltron fandom, even though I watched a couple seasons of the show, because I was like, I wanted to stay blind to it and not let those fandom fires color my opinions of the show, because at the fandom at the time was very angry with the show while I was enjoying it a lot. So I didn't want to go in being like with a like hostile opinion of it. I could see the areas where the show could potentially grow to have flaws. But like I still liked it. So like I've been thinking about lately, again, the reason I brought this up originally was like I don't have a lot of time for movies, but I've been thinking about lately about going back and rewatching Voltron. Like I don't honestly remember where I left off, so I can't exactly go back and just pick up where I left off like I did with Castlevania and just watch the remaining 2 seasons, because I think I stopped in the middle of a season, or I just can't remember where I stopped. So like I would probably just it'd be nice to go back and like catch up like with the storyline. I was pretty far in the show, and it is a story that builds over time, so I would think I would have to go back just to refresh my knowledge of it. But I'm like, I've been thinking about going back and rewatching the show, rewatching what I already watched, and then actually finishing the show so I can give my own opinion on it, because it seems like a lot of people have a lot of very volatile opinions about the show. But I've also watched some retrospectives where people be like, actually, this was a good show. It made some stupid decisions in its final season, but I'm like, it still was good for the most part. It just maybe didn't grow to as good as it could have been. But at the same time, like I've said before, like mid should stop being a word. Like it's okay for shows to be just okay, or to even just be good instead of great. Not everything needs to be great. Some things can be good and still enjoyable, because like not everything I want to have a super strong emotional reaction to. Sometimes I like to go back to, like, again, Voltron remind me of watching Super Friends. Like, simpler time when all you cared about was superheroes fighting the bad guys. All you cared about was the mech transforming. Like, would you like better character development? Yes, but then again, the whole point of, like, the Voltron team is that they're very stereotype 5-man band. So while they mixed that up a little bit, even in the remake, they still were kind of very basic characters. And it sounds like the biggest issue of the final season was just that, like, some of those basic character traits were never answered or built upon. So, like, some characters felt like they never quite progressed into someone new, while other characters did. So just, like, the character, like, attention on the characters was kind of not evenly spread. So some characters, like, got really complex and cool, and then some of them just were like, he's still just the funny guy. She's still just the smart person. And it never really grows beyond that. So I kind of want to just go back and see it and be like, give it my own opinion, because a lot of the time, actually, when people don't like things, I tend to have like a much easier opinion on things, and be like, no, I can see the positive in this, because I tend to look for the positive in a lot of things. And there have been rare occurrences where something that is universally loved, I've hated, but like that's just opinions when it comes down to it. So I've been thinking about it. I've been considering a lot. Just lately. I don't know, I think I saw, like, some video on it recently, and I was just thinking about, like, or maybe I was thinking about the 5-man band trope, because I was watching that one video by OSP, which, overly sarcastic protections, if you love, like, literature tropes, or writing, or archetypes, or anything like that, they're amazing. Go watch them. They're a great channel. I watch them all the time. Definitely learn more about tropes and stuff myself. And a lot of the literary things I do discuss on my own streams. But, I don't know why, but I was just been thinking about Voltron lately, and kind of being like, I wonder if I should go back and rewatch that. Like, there are some episodes I think I would skip on a second viewing, just because like there were some that I definitely remember being kind of fillery episodes. But I'm like, I think I would be enjoyable to go watch it back again. And even if it did some stupid choices later on, I'm like, there still has to be good moments in there. Like, you know, like people go back and like hit the highlights, but then like the moments I also like are like the little tiny things that like I remember a lot of details. So like some people will be like remember like a few major arcs. I'll remember like every little moment for whatever character I enjoy, like with incredible detail. So that's why I like to like read things to full or complete them or go through all the canon before I ever enter fan material, because I like to have like a full wealth of knowledge so I know what I'm informed when I'm going in. So I don't know. I've just been thinking about it. Maybe I might want to rewatch Voltron at some point. Just because it could be something that I wouldn't have to like put full commitment into, like a brand new series or like watching a movie. I could just watch it slowly at my own pace because I'd be rewatching a lot of stuff. I want to do that with like My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic at some point too. I really enjoyed that show when it first came out. So yeah, I've made at this point 4 tales. I need F6, but I'm honestly getting really hungry and my music did just stop. So I'm going to call it now. I'm going to do the other 2 off stream probably. Maybe I'll bring on the final project if I have time to sew it. But I'm going to end here for right now. I've loved all the activity. I've been glad for all people who came in to chat with me today. Glad for everyone who popped in, who lurked, who just enjoyed my rambling and working with yarn. I haven't done one of these in a while, so it's been really nice to do this again. But I'll be back next Tuesday playing video games. I'm trying to beat Castlevania Judgment. I think I have like 2 more story modes. It's for this one character that I absolutely love in that game. So I'll be playing that on Tuesday. Otherwise, follow the channel to know when I'm going live. I have a pretty erratic schedule with all the random other hobbies and jobs I do. So definitely follow so you can check it out. And if you want to check out any past streams I've done, those are all recorded on my YouTube channel. Same name, Cozy Gamers. I believe it's with an underscore between the two words. It has the same dragon icon as this channel, though, if you're ever confused about that. So, yeah, thanks for anyone who came and chat, who lurked, who enjoyed just hanging out. I've had a pretty good time, and I think I'm going to go and get some food now. So, thanks for everyone for hanging out with me. It's been a good time, good day. Have a good rest of your day, whatever time of day it may be, wherever you are, whatever time zone you're in. And I'll see you guys next time.